Alright, we are here in beautiful sunny Florida, and today, people, we are breaking down UFC on Fox 22, VanZant versus Waterson in Sacramento, California. And, man, when it comes to Fox standards, I would say this card it's a little weak, man. I won't lie. I would say when it comes to viewership, it should do pretty well. You got Gall versus Northcutt in the co-main event. Not the most talented guys in the world. Obviously they're still pretty green, but those are some well-known names, man, and they are going to bring in some viewers. Then, of course, in the main event, you got Michelle Waterson versus Paige VanZant, and two beautiful ladies nonetheless. They got some names on them. They're going to pull in some viewers too. So I would say from a viewership standpoint, this card will do very well. It isn't the most talent-rich card ever, but there's some hidden gems in here, man. You can't get a card like UFC 206 every single week. That card was just absolutely amazing. And speaking of UFC 206, fortunately, I was able to have the most successful MMA betting night of my life. If you do not know, I gained 10.6 units that night. Very good night for me. I am still riding that high, and I hope to continue it here, man, because I do have 10 bets on this card, and I will be going through all those at the end, so make sure to stick around for that, where you're going to be breaking down this entire 13 fight card. And let's get into it, man. Let's do this. So first up, we got Bojan Velickovic minus 160 taking on Sultan Aliev. So based on my assessment of the fight, I think this is going to be a barn burner, man. You got Bojan. He's coming off the draw to Michael Graves. I'm sure that left a bitter taste in his mouth. He's going to be wanting to come out here and make a statement. You got Aliev coming off a 2-year layoff after that KO loss to Kenny Robertson. Both guys, they throw wild striking attacks, and both guys tend to get hit a good amount too. So, we got high finish rates here. Should be some fun stuff, man. But, if it stays on the feet, I would have to say I would give Bojan a slight striking advantage and definitely a decent chin advantage. Whereas Sultan, he's most likely going to want to take this fight to the ground and utilize that championship sambo of his. And, he does have a decent chance to get it there. I'm sure he will. But, I think Bojan has a superior BJJ here, and he can give Aliev some problems on the mat, man. So this fight's going to be fun no matter where it goes, honestly. Even if Aliev gets it down to the ground, we're going to see some serious scrambles here from Bojan Velickovic. And, just like I said, man, Aliev is going to be in trouble wherever the fight goes. And, I could see Aliev grinding things out to a decision, or maybe even getting a KO on the feet as well. Like I said, he throws crazy, big, powerful shots, and Bojan does get hit. But honestly, man, I think a Bojan finish on the feet or the ground is more likely. I like a finish for Bojan Velickovic here, and he is going to be my official pick. My official pick is going to be Bojan Velickovic via a first-round TKO, and I do have one bet on this fight. I have one unit on this fight to not go the distance at plus 160. Very surprised at that line. If I had to set it myself, I would say this fight not going the distance would be a slight favorite. And plus 160 for this fight not to go the distance. That is something I like, man. So hopefully we can go ahead and cash that. But moving on here, we got Hector Sandoval minus 115 taking on Freddie Serrano minus 105. I'll talk about my bets about this fight at the end, man, but it's kind of funny how things worked out. But fun flyweight matchup here, man. Obviously, Hector Sandoval, he made his short notice debut against Wilson Hayes. Pretty much just came in there, threw wild shots, and Wilson took him down with ease and tapped him out with ease. And, Freddie Serrano coming off that loss to Ryan Benoit. Very, very close fight, though. Split decision, could have gone either way, but man, biggest thing that jumps off to me here is the age difference. 7-year age difference here, man. Freddie Serrano, he is 37 years old. Thing is, though, who else is really old in his late 30s? Yoel Romero. Both guys, Olympic wrestlers, very athletic guys, and man, those Olympic wrestlers, they just don't age like the rest of the guys, do they? Freddie Serrano is still very fast, very athletic, very good fighter, and I would say Freddie Serrano, of course, has to be very careful on the feet because, like I said, Sandoval throws those bombs, and he's got some big power for the 125 division. Freddie Serrano, he can throw some crazy stuff on the feet too, so he's got to be careful not to get caught. You know, like I said, Sandoval throws those wild bombs. They're not very technical, which, it leaves them open to Serrano landing some punches of his own, but more importantly and most likely, it will leave him open to the takedowns from the Olympic wrestler, and I think that's going to be Serrano's key to victory here, man. I don't see, the thing I most likely see here by a wide margin is just Freddie Serrano being able to utilize those takedowns, grind Sandoval out for 3 rounds, and for Sandoval to just have nothing for Serrano, from no takedown defense, no jiu-jitsu threats on the ground. I think this is going to be a pretty clear-cut win for Freddie Serrano here, so my official pick is going to be Freddie Serrano via a 30-27 decision. So moving on here, bantamweight division, we got Eddie Wineland minus 210 taking on Takeya Mizugaki plus 175. So, decent matchup here. 2 bantamweight gatekeepers where, honestly, man, it really could be the end of the road for the loser, especially Mizugaki, man. He's been knocked out quite a few times lately. And, man, when it comes to this fight, I think it's going to be all about Eddie Wineland's boxing. I think it's probably a little too much for Mizugaki at this point. We saw Eddie Wineland in his last fight against Frankie Saenz. Man, I was pretty confident in Frankie Saenz there. I thought Eddie Wineland was a shot fighter. Frankie Saenz was going to be able to go in there and utilize takedowns and just pretty much destroy Eddie Wineland. And Eddie Wineland went out there and put on a boxing clinic and stopped Frankie Saenz, who was a very good fighter. And, man, the only 2 times Mizugaki fought a crisp boxer with good power in the last 5 years was Cruz and Garbrandt. They both stopped him within a minute. I'm not saying Eddie Wineland is as good as those guys, but his boxing is very, very good, and it's close to those guys. And man, Mizugaki, his last 6 wins have all come by decision, where he pretty much just uses his well-roundedness and experience most of the time. But that's a tough matchup for against Eddie Wineland here, because Eddie has the same amount of experience as Mizugaki, and even if he can't KO Mizugaki, which I think he will, he's going to be the more active striker. He's going to be landing more shots, throwing more volume, most likely defending takedowns. So another decision win for Mizugaki is very unlikely here. So man, if I just like Eddie Wineland here a lot, honestly, man. I think he's going to be able to clearly win a decision or clearly get that stoppage, and I do have Eddie Wineland in a parlay, but like I said, official pick is going to be Eddie Wineland via a first-round TKO. Moving on here to the women's bantamweight division. Actually very excited about this one, man. We got Irene Aldana minus 320 now, taking on Leslie Smith plus 260. So, man, I absolutely love Irene Aldana, especially in this fight, man. She is one of my most confident picks on this card, if not my most confident, I would have to say. Man, if you watched her Invicta run, where she absolutely destroyed everybody in the first round, of course, other than Tanya Evinger, who very grizzled, tough veteran who, ever since that fight, Aldana looks improved. So that's one of those losses where a fighter can improve off of. So, man, like I said, Irene Aldana, just going out there destroying everyone. I wouldn't even compare Leslie Smith to Tanya Evinger. I think Tanya Evinger is levels above Leslie Smith. Irene Aldana, she's a very, very well-rounded fighter, but obviously it's all about her striking, more in particular her boxing. Very dangerous, big power for her division. Leslie Smith, she's a very tough woman, but in my opinion, she just isn't the greatest fighter in the world, man, especially her striking defense. And that's going to be tough against Irene Aldana. She was getting absolutely lit up by Jessica Ai, and nobody really gets lit up by Jessica Ai, and that was happening to Leslie Smith. Obviously, I think Irene Aldana is way sharper than Jessica Ai, so in my opinion, Leslie Smith is going to need to look for takedowns and grind this out with her experience edge, but I don't like her chances to do that at all, man. I like Irene Aldana to just put an absolute boxing clinic on Leslie Smith. Leslie Smith, also, I'm not even sure how much she cares about fighting anymore. She's focusing a hell of a lot more on unions and associations. So my official pick is going to be Irene Aldana via a first round TKO. And I will talk about the plays I have for that fight at the end, because there is quite a few, man. So moving on here, we got Josh Emmett minus 190 taking on Scott Holtzman plus 165. Decent fight here, man. I'm pretty high on Josh Emmett. He impressed me a lot coming in on short notice and beating John Tuck. Scott Holtzman, on the other hand, comes off to me as your average run-of-the-mill decent fighter who can beat the top or the bottom 30% of the division most of the time. But, he's going to go ahead and lose to guys with some good skills. That fight against Drew Dober, he was supposed to have a big grappling advantage, but, Drew Dober actually out-grappled him, and Drew Dober was able to defend takedowns also and just light Scott Holtzman up with his excellent Muay Thai. And, looking at Scott Holtzman, his only two UFC wins are against Anthony Christodoulou and Cody Pfister. So, nothing too impressive yet from Scott Holtzman. However, Josh Emmett, like I said, very impressive in that last fight against John Tuck. I like Josh Emmett here to just use that super sharp boxing of his and even mix up takedowns. I'm sure Scott Holtzman will probably be the one looking for takedowns. I like Josh Emmett to go ahead and defend all those, man. I like just to be a Josh Emmett fight the entire way through. My official pick is going to be Josh Emmett via a 30-27 decision, and I do have Josh Emmett in a parlay I will talk about at the end. But moving on here, we got Alex Morono minus 125 taking on James Moontasri plus 105, man. So, before tape study, I was slightly going with Alex Morono. But after tape study, I really like James Moontasri here, man. James, you forget what an excellent striker this guy is, man. Sometimes he doesn't show up sometimes, but I think against Alex Morono, I think this is going to be one of those times where he does show up. And, Alex Morono, it's pretty clear that the game plan here is he's going to want to go ahead and strike with James Moontasri, but that's not a good idea, man. James Moontasri has some elite level striking, man. That beautiful taekwondo, and man, the combinations James put together against Anton Zafir to get him out of there in the first round, beautiful stuff. One of my favorite stoppages of the year. Doesn't really get talked about that much. If you haven't seen that, go check out James Moontasri versus Anton Zafir. One of my favorite finishes of the year so far. James Moontasri, he brings in a lot more UFC experience. He's a lot more comfortable there. Alex Morono had that one UFC fight so far against Kyle Noak, split decision. Most people thought Kyle Noak won that fight. I thought Morono won it, but very, very close nonetheless. And obviously we can tell Kyle Noak is just a guy that doesn't really have it anymore, man. So, I think Alex Morono is going to need to utilize takedowns here. I don't even know if he's going to try to do that. I don't even know if he can do that, but that's really his only chance here because I like Moontasri to just light Morono up on the feet here for 3 rounds. My official pick is going to be James Moontasri via a 30-27 decision, but a TKO would not surprise me. And I do have 1 unit on James Moontasri at plus 110. So moving on here. Very fun fight here. Probably one of the top 5 fights of the card. We got Colby Covington minus 370 taking on Brian Barberena plus 310. So, man, obviously Brian Barberena, been the prospect killer, been winning a lot of fights as the underdog lately. So it is hard to bet against him here. But, man, he's taken on one of the most difficult matchups there possibly is with Colby Covington, man. Colby Covington, obviously one of the most high-level wrestlers in the entire UFC, man. Colby Covington is an absolute stud. Barberena, who was originally a 155-pounder, by the way, taking on a big 170-pound wrestler here. So, Man, I just think that size and just the wrestling difference here. I have a hard time seeing Brian Barberena stuffing takedowns or even getting back up. Maybe he can give Colby some fits with the jiu-jitsu. I would say Brian Barberena might have a slight jiu-jitsu advantage here, but man, I think Colby's just going to be able to use his size and dominance to make sure he doesn't get into any bad spots. And I like Colby to just beat up Brian Barberena on the ground here for a few rounds. And my official pick is going to be Colby Covington versus via a third round TKO. Just very hard time seeing a route of victory for Barberena here, but I didn't want to lay too much on Colby Covington just because Brian Barberena is such a stud and has so many upsets in his career. So I only do have 1.2 units on Colby Covington in a parlay with Eddie Wineland. So moving on here, we got Mizuto Hirota minus 120 taking on Cole Miller plus 100. Man, just a fight that doesn't really interest me at all, besides the fact that I have a bet for it. But looking back in Cole Miller's record here, man, he hasn't had a good performance in a really, really long time. And it's been even longer since he had a good performance against a solid guy. And Mizuto Hirota is a solid guy, man. I think it's very unlikely Cole Miller gets the job done here, other than a crafty submission. But Mizuto Hirota, a veteran, very solid guy, very solid defensively. He has actually never been submitted once before. And man, if you guys haven't been listening to these Cole Miller interviews, it sounds like he doesn't give a shit about fighting anymore. It just sounds like he wants to get this fight over with. He doesn't care. Just seems like he's in a very bad mindset right now to be going in there and fighting a very solid guy in Mizuto Hirota. And Mizuto Hirota is a guy that does give a shit. Fighting is his life, man. So I like Hirota. Keep this standing and piece up Cole Miller on the feet. Cole Miller, he's got that great jiu-jitsu, but he's never really had the wrestling, so I doubt he's going to be able to even get Hirota onto the ground here, so I like Hirota to just light Cole Miller up for 3 rounds. Stoppage would not surprise me, especially with the way Cole Miller is talking, but my official pick is going to be Mizuto Hirota via a 30-27 decision. Moving on here, last prelim of the night, and possibly one of my favorite fights on this card, man. Very fun stuff. We got Henrique da Silva, Frankenstein, my boy, who made me some money last time out, minus 225, taking on Paul Craig, the Bear Jew, plus 185. If you don't know this Paul Craig guy, he's pretty awesome, man. Scottish fighter, big guy. Like I said, one of the best nicknames in MMA, the Bear Jew. Very, very good on the ground, but man, awesome matchup here at 205 pounds between two great prospects in the light heavyweight division, and as we all know, light heavyweight is very short on prospects, so this is a big fight for the division, man. I would say this might even be my second or third favorite fight on the card, but man, it is so tough to pick a winner here. It's all about who can put the pressure on and make it their fight. Paul Craig, amazing, lethal grappler, just so good on the ground for a big guy, and I've said it before, I love big guys who can grapple so lethally, and it's just so fun to watch, man. Just to watch the big man work on the mat, but he's also great in the clinch, man. He has shown some excellent Muay Thai. Frankenstein here, he is going to want to keep this fight standing and strike at range, or somehow end up on a dominant position on Craig, because I've seen Craig, I've seen guys on top of Craig before, and he didn't have really much for them on the bottom, or much get-up game, so if Frankenstein wants to, go for takedowns here, he does have to be very careful, but I could see him, getting on top and staying there. I have a hard time seeing Frankenstein finish Craig, but I could see him outpointing him over the course of 3 rounds, of course. I don't see Paul Craig knocking Frankenstein out of the feet, of course. He really hasn't done that to anybody, and obviously Frankenstein has an absolute iron chin. So it's whether or not he can get it on the ground, and he has been subbing everyone with his lethal groundwork, but now Frankenstein is a huge step up. This is a pick'em fight to me, man. I have gone back and forth many times, and I actually just switched my pick about an hour before recording this. But even though with the UFC experience and making money on Frankenstein last time out, big fan of that guy. I'm gonna go with Paul Craig here, man. I think Paul Craig is the real deal, and I think he is going to get Henrique onto the ground here, and he's going to show off that lethal grappling of his. My official pick is going to be Paul Craig via a second round submission, and obviously at that big price of his, I did make a bet. He is plus 185 right now. I got him when the lines were first released. I had one unit on him at plus 220. So, moving on to the main card here, man. This is my favorite fight of the card, hands down. I don't even think it's close at all. But we got Mike Platinum Perry minus 135 taking on Alan Jouban plus 115. So like I said, easily the best fight on the card. Has fireworks written all over it as long as it lasts. So how this matchup goes, obviously we saw Perry in his last fight against Roberts. He showed a great chin, toughness. He just kept coming forward and landing his own shots, just slowly chipping away at the chin of Danny Roberts. And, Mike Perry even showed off some decent groundwork there, but I don't think that's nothing he's going to be going for. I don't see him going for takedowns here against Jouban. I think he's going to go ahead and try to take Jouban's head off. And, Alan Jouban has great striking, man. Excellent Muay Thai. I'd say he's a better striker than Perry, but man, it is a dangerous game to go in there and strike with Mike Perry. I think it's very unlikely that he stops Perry just because of, just Perry showed off such an amazing chin in his last fight. Alan Jouban, he has knocked people out before, but he wasn't able to get Bilal Muhammad out of there, and Vicente Luque got Bilal Muhammad out of there in like a minute. And Vicente Luque is not even a striker, so is the power gone for Alan Jouban? Is he starting to lose it a little bit? He is 35 years old. People forget how old he is just because of how beautiful he is, but man. Like I said, man, Alan Jouban is going to have the striking advantage here, but tough game to play with Mike Perry. I eventually see Mike Perry landing that big shot, and my money is on Alan Jouban not being able to take that big shot, man. We've seen him get knocked out before, and man, I think Mike Perry is simply going to land that shot and put Alan Jouban away. I like the win streak for Mike Perry to continue, and my official pick is going to be Mike Perry via a first round KO. I do have 1.4 units on Mike Perry at minus 115. So moving on, we got a big old retirement fight here, man. Very excited for this. We got Uriah Faber minus 500 taking on Brad Pickett plus 400. Man, so we got the Swan Song here for Uriah Faber, and in his hometown nonetheless. He's got a pretty favorable matchup here in front of him. Usually in retirement fights or fights where guys are considering retirement, I'll usually fade those guys, but in this case, you got Brad Pickett on the other side, who's saying in interviews he wants the next fight after this one to be his retirement fight in England. So I'm not taking Faber retiring into too much consideration here. I don't think that'll matter too much. If anything, it'll help him. But when it comes to stylistical matchup here, I think it favors Faber quite a bit. I think he's got way more left in the tank than Pickett. Pickett has lost 5 straight now. If you count the Rivera fight as a loss, I thought that was a robbery. I thought Francisco Rivera clearly won that fight. But, Faber, he is retiring, but he's still only losing to the elite of the elite. Still puts together sensational performances against middle-of-the-pack guys. And I don't even know if I would consider Brad Pickett a middle-of-the-pack guy anymore. He has regressed quite a bit. Went out there and got absolutely starched by Yuri Alcantara last time out. So I like the first round to be somewhat close, a nice striking battle between the two, and then second round, Faber is going to figure out Brad Pickett a little bit, get it to the ground, and wrap up a submission. So my official pick is going to be Uriah Faber via a second round submission. So moving on here to the co-main event. Very fun matchup here between some names and characters in the sport, but in reality, two very green fighters who shouldn't be in the UFC yet. We got Mickey Gall minus 140 taking on Sage Northcutt plus 120. I say they really shouldn't be in the UFC yet. I say yet because, both these guys have shown some real promise. Mickey Gall, excellent grappler. Just very athletic guy, good guy. He's got a great mindset for the sport. I do see him having a good future. Mickey Gall, he's going to have the size advantage here, and he's going to have the ground advantage, and that might be enough just to get a green fighter like Sage Northcutt out of there. However, I think Sage has more going for him here, man. He has fought the much better and much more experienced fighter, and he's actually had to fight through adversity, man. Mickey Gall has never been in a tough spot before, and we don't know how he will react to getting hit by a very strong, powerful, athletic guy like Sage Northcutt, man. Sage, in my opinion, also contains a very big advantage on the feet, man. People are just forgetting how good Sage Northcutt, man. Like, do you remember what Sage Northcutt did in his UFC debut against Francisco Trevino? Francisco Trevino is better than anybody Mickey Gall has fought, man. Sage Northcutt's no joke, man, and at such a young age, he's gonna get better. He is getting better. He's, like I said, big advantage on the feet. People think Mickey Gall's so good on the feet just because he knocked down some unathletic reporter, but, say what you want about Sage's fighting skills, but he's just insanely strong, very good athlete. I think 170 is probably a better division for him. I'd like to see him without having to cut all that weight. Obviously, like I said, Mickey Gall, big jiu-jitsu advantage here, but Mickey Gall is no amazing wrestler by any means, so I think Sage's speed and strength can keep it standing, stuff takedowns, and I like Sage to light Mickey up on the feet. I'm not sure he can finish or not, but my official pick is going to be Sage Northcutt via a second-round TKO, and when it comes to betting, man, both fighters are so green, the lines aren't juicy enough. I would personally stay away from it, even though my official pick is with the underdog. But moving on to the main event here, we got Michelle Waterson plus 100 taking on Paige VanZant minus 120. And, man, I've had a very, very tough time picking this fight here. I would say Waterson, she is the slightly sharper and more skilled fighter here, and also has an experience edge, but VanZant has some advantages too, man. I give her the athleticism advantage. She puts forth more pressure, very relentless, never stops. She's also had more experience in the UFC, and in particular, more experience at 115 pounds, but, she doesn't really have that much of a size advantage. But Waterson, her last fight against Magana tried using her size and pushing Waterson up against the cage, and it worked for a few minutes, but eventually Waterson's skills came through, and although Waterson has more MMA experience than Paige, Paige has been in there with the better fighters like Rosanami Yunus, Felice Herrig, etc. I like this fight to be very back and forth and really fun scrambles on the mat. I think this should be a very fun fight, to be honest, but I would give Waterson advantage on the feet, but Paige throws a lot of unorthodox technique, which could throw Waterson off, and then possibly on the ground, I would say Waterson probably has the advantage there too, but Paige, like I said, very relentless and tough, and she's most likely going to be on the good end of some scrambles. So, all in all, I see this fight going the distance. It's going to be very close here, but I'm going to side with, in my opinion, the slightly more technical fighter, and that is Michelle Waterson. I'm going to go with Michelle Waterson via a 48-47 decision. That is my official pick. So, co-main event and main event, I'm going with the underdog, but no plays there. I just think the lines aren't juicy enough and the fights are too close. I don't have that good enough read on it, so no plays there, but I am going to go over my 10 bets here. I do have 1.5 units on Mizuto Hirota to win 1.3, 1.4 units on Mike Perry to win 1.2, 1 unit on Paul Craig to win 2.2, and then 1 unit on Freddie Serrano at plus 150. I forgot to talk about that, man. Freddie Serrano, he opened up as a favorite, and I got him in the parlay. in a parlay as the favorite, which is a big mistake because he ended up being a huge underdog the next day. But yeah, 1 unit on Serrano to win 1.5, 1 unit on Moontasri to win 1.1, 1 unit on the Aldana Smith under 2.5 rounds to win 1.5, 1 unit on the Aliev Velickovic to not go the distance to win 1.6, 1.5 units on Aldana and Emmett to win 1.6, 1.2 units on Covington and Wineland to win 1 unit, and then 1 unit on Aldana Serrano to win 1.3. So that is going to do it for me, guys. Pretty pissed this video went as long as it did, but good stuff to talk about, man. Good, decent card here. Some fun stuff. I really like the Jouban Perry fight. Really like the Frankenstein Paul Craig fight. But that is going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I will catch you in the next one. Follow me on Twitter at MMAKelton. Leave a like. It just takes 2 seconds. And subscribe to the channel. Retweet my tweet for this video. And enjoy the fights.